My crazy ex-boyfriend stole all my money, then disappeared. So I tracked him down and did the same exact thing to him. He went insane in the aftermath and got himself imprisoned. When I first met my boyfriend Ken, I opened up to him about my past relationship. I told him that the man I was with was abusive, and Ken responded by telling me he would take care of me. Not even 2 weeks in, he was sending flowers to my workplace. We quickly began dating, but unlike most sociopaths, Ken didn't flip the switch when we got together. Instead, he was the perfect boyfriend for an entire year. I thought I was going to marry him, but I woke up one day to him missing and all of his stuff gone. I called, but he wouldn't respond. I started going through drawers hoping to find something, but I noticed some valuables missing. My watch, my earrings, and even the couple $100 cash in my wallet. What's much worse is when I logged into my bank account, I saw that he had cleared all of it out too. Every dime out of the $100,000 I had in savings was gone. Because I was quite dumb at the time and living above my means, I failed to pay rent for the next 3 months. I was evicted and left homeless. The weeks that followed were a blur. I couldn't eat or sleep, and my phone was constantly blowing up with calls from debt collectors. It was humiliating. I had gone from having everything, love, a stable life, and finances on point, to having absolutely nothing. My family couldn't believe what had happened, and I didn't even want to explain it. It was too embarrassing. Living out of my car wasn't sustainable. I'd park in different places each night to avoid attention, but it was only a matter of time before someone noticed. I still had a few belongings crammed into the back seat, but every day it seemed like I was losing more, whether it was my dignity, my hope, or another bill that went unpaid. Eventually, I realized that I couldn't handle this on my own, and called Kayla. Kayla had been my best friend for years. We met in college, and we drifted apart after we started working, but the bond was still tight whenever we met up for lunch. When she found out what happened, she didn't hesitate. She immediately offered me a place to stay. At first, I resisted. I didn't want to be a burden, but Kayla wouldn't take no for an answer. "You're moving in with me. End of discussion," she said, crossed her arms, and gave me a look that said she meant business. I didn't have much choice, so I packed up what little I had and moved into her spare bedroom. It wasn't much, but it was a hell of a lot better than sleeping in my car. The first night, I cried myself to sleep out of sheer relief. I was beyond grateful that someone still cared about me after everything I had been through. For a while, I stayed at Kayla's. I applied for jobs and worked on getting my finances back in order. But no matter how hard I worked, one thought kept gnawing at me. Ken was out there, living his life with my money, probably laughing about how he had fooled me so easily. The rage I felt was overwhelming. I wasn't the type to let things go easily, and the more I thought about it, the more determined I became to track him down. I knew it was crazy, and I debated whether I should have just let it go, moved on, and rebuilt my life. But I couldn't. That's when I decided to hire a private investigator. It was a stretch. I didn't have much money left, but I scraped together what I could and hired a PI to track Ken down. It worked out. I was also starting to get paid from the coffee shop job that I applied to recently. I needed to know where he was, what he was doing, and if there was any chance of getting my money back. After a few weeks of staying at Kayla's, I started to feel a bit of guilt settle in. As much as she said I didn't need to worry about paying rent, it didn't sit right with me. She was my best friend, and I wasn't about to take advantage of her kindness. One morning over coffee, I told her that I would start paying her rent, and she refused to take it since I was her best friend. I told her it would make me feel like I had a bit more control over my life and would find a way to pay her every month, so she allowed it. That way turned out to be opening another credit card. I had sworn off credit after what happened with Ken, but it felt like my only option. Between rent and funding the private investigator to track down Ken, the costs were piling up, and it wasn't like I could ask my parents for help. They already thought I was reckless for getting into this mess in the first place. I stared at my phone screen for a good 20 minutes before finally pressing submit on the credit card application. I knew that it would be worth it. I'd get my money back once I tracked him down. Once I had everything he stole from me, I could pay off Kayla, pay off the PI, and clear all these credit card balances. It was temporary, or at least that's what I kept telling myself. Temporary or not, seeing the charges rack up made my stomach turn. The PI wasn't cheap, and I'd set aside a good chunk of that new credit limit just to pay him. Each week I got another update, another clue as to where Ken was hiding. Kayla noticed I'd been more tense lately. One night, as we were watching TV, she casually asked if I was okay because I seemed stressed. I didn't want to worry her with the details and told her I was fine, just trying to balance everything. She said if it was about the PI, she told me not to go through with that and that I shouldn't have to go broke over this. That was true. I did run it by Kayla and didn't tell her that I went through with the PI, and I felt bad for it at first, but I had to. Once this was all over, I'd have my money back, and I'd pay her every cent I owed. I just needed a little more time. Kayla raised an eyebrow, but she didn't push it further. I was already in too deep, and I had to believe this would all work out in the end. The PI worked fast. Within 2 weeks, he had tracked Ken to another city. He was living under a different name, using fake documents, and of course, still living off the money he had stolen from me. Seeing pictures of Ken ignited a fire in me. I wasn't going to let him get away with it, but I needed help. That's when I thought of Sarah. Sarah was someone I hadn't spoken to in a long time. We used to be close, but over the years, we had drifted apart too. I knew her in college, but she had never been to school. We hung in the same friend groups, and if there was one thing to know know about Sarah, it was that she was trouble and always had been. She thrived on chaos and drama, but was also incredibly smart with it. I knew that if anyone could help me get back at Ken, it was her. I reached out to Sarah, explained what had happened, and told her my plan. I wanted to ruin Ken, not just financially, but emotionally. I wanted him to feel the same pain and betrayal that I had felt. Sarah wanted to know what was in it for her. I told her that once I got all the money he had stolen from me, I'd give her a portion of it, and of course, she was all in. The plan was simple. Sarah would seduce Ken. She would gain his trust, worm her way into his life, and then take everything from him: his money, his dignity, and his sense of control. The first night she saw him, it was almost too easy. He was sitting at the bar. Sarah wore a tight black dress that hugged every curve just right and strutted right over to where he was. They talked for a while, and she told me they had danced for hours that night. Sarah made sure every move kept his attention. She really knew how to dangle the bait without giving everything away. Within a few weeks, she had Ken wrapped around her finger. He had no idea she was working with me. She played the part of the doting girlfriend, hanging on his every word, pretending to care about him the way I had once done. Ken fell for it. I watched from the sidelines as Sarah executed our plan. Late one evening, my phone buzzed, and Sarah's name lit up the screen. I answered, already knowing from her timing and the way she'd been handling Ken that something big was coming. "Guess what, babe?" she said, sounding giddy. I asked her what was new, and she said she got him. He finally gave her access to his bank account that day. All of it. "Are you serious?" I asked, but I was too afraid to believe it was real. "Dead serious," Sarah confirmed. She revealed that she told him she needed access to help manage expenses and take care of him, and he was more than happy to hand it over. We talked about the next steps, and we created a new account under a fake name. We funneled everything from his account into it slowly, and when we decided we'd have enough, we'd drain it all in one go. My heart pounded as she laid out the plan. I knew it was dangerous, but after everything Ken had put me through, I didn't care. He deserved to lose everything the way he'd made me lose it all. And the thought of him trusting Sarah, thinking she was his savior, only for her to be working with me the entire time, was delicious. "That sounds perfect," I agreed. Sarah said that she would handle setting up the new account since she had more experience in situations like this. I knew this wasn't her first rodeo, so I trusted her. She guaranteed there would be no connection to us, and by the time he realizes what's happening, the money will be long gone. As I hung up, I couldn't help but feel a wave of satisfaction. It was all falling into place. Ken had destroyed me, taken everything I had, and now it was his turn to lose it all. By the time Ken realized what was happening, it was too late. Sarah had drained every penny from his accounts and left him with nothing. I sat by my phone for hours after the money was supposed to be transferred, waiting for Sarah to call. It was taking longer than I expected, but I wasn't too worried at first. Maybe she's being extra cautious, I thought. After all, we had planned this out perfectly. She wouldn't just disappear. We were in this together. But when midnight came and went, and I still hadn't heard from her, dread started to take over. I checked my phone again. No missed calls, no messages. I decided to text her, trying to keep it casual. The message was sent, but no response. I waited a few more minutes, staring at my screen like it might somehow summon a reply if I focused hard enough. Nothing. I clicked on her profile picture, about to send another message, when I noticed something strange. Her account was gone. The chat we'd been using for weeks was suddenly empty. There was no profile picture and no username. A cold wave of realization hit me as I scrambled to check my other social media. I was blocked on everything: Instagram, Facebook, and even the stupid TikTok account we used to send each other memes. It was like she had vanished into thin air. She was completely gone. I felt my stomach drop. She blocked me and took everything. I tried calling her, but it went straight to voicemail. My heart pounded in my chest as I dialed again and again, but nothing changed. She had cut me off completely. The panic was rising in my throat now. How could I have been so stupid? She played me, just like Ken had. I sank back onto the couch, my phone still clutched in my hand, and stared at the screen. I had trusted her after everything we'd been through, and now she was gone, and so was the money. I wasn't going to let it happen again. I knew enough about Sarah to blackmail her. I had dirt on her and plenty of it, and if I went to the police with what I knew, her life would be over. I called her one last time from Kayla's phone and gave her an ultimatum. Either she gave me my share of the money, or I would expose everything. Sarah fought me on it, of course, but in the end, she knew I had the upper hand. She eventually transferred the money to me. A few days later, I got a call from Ken. He had figured out that I was behind everything, and he wasn't happy. He threatened to ruin my life, just like I had ruined his. I tried to brush it off, thinking he was just angry and blowing off steam, but then things started happening. Strange packages began arriving at Kayla's apartment. Debt collectors started calling about loans I hadn't taken out. It didn't take long for me to connect the dots. Ken was trying to get back at me. He was trying to ruin me, just like I had ruined him. Then, one day, the police showed up at Kayla's door. They had received a tip that there were stolen goods in her apartment. I knew immediately who was behind it: Ken. Ken had gotten sloppy. The police found nothing incriminating in the apartment, but they did find the billing address linking back to him. It turned out Ken had been involved in a lot more illegal activities than I had originally thought. He was ordering packages and requesting refunds for the goods, claiming that he never got the parcel and would turn around and sell the parcels on the black market and keep the money from the refund. The police opened an investigation, and before I knew it, Ken was arrested. They charged him with fraud, conspiracy, and several other crimes. The trial took months, but in the end, Ken was sentenced to prison. He had tried to destroy me, but he had only destroyed himself. As for Sarah, I haven't spoken to her since. After everything that happened, I realized I didn't need her, and I didn't need the money. Looking back, I know that the revenge wasn't worth it, and I often wondered what my life would have been like if I had listened to Kayla in the beginning, but at least now, I can finally move on.